I'm Heather.
And I'm Desiree.
And you're listening to
the Perpetually Overdue Podcast. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Perpetually Overdue Podcast. I am Desiree.
And I'm Heather.
And this week we have a fun topic. I'm curious to hear. I feel like I know some. I mean, she's my best friend, so I feel like I know some of hers. But I also.
Okay. Are we going to put that to the test today?
Maybe not. My brain today. But I'm curious to see if, as we break down others, if maybe we realize, oh, yeah, I've been curious about that. The episode today is about morbid curiosities. And if we really think about it, a lot of people may not admit they have any, but I'm pretty sure some form or another, every human on this earth has morbid curiosities. So we're going to talk about some of ours and also maybe some theories and scientific facts on if it's normal, if it's healthy, if it's usual for people to have morbid curiosities. So,
well, if it's wrong, I don't want to be right.
Here. She says with a skull behind her head.
That is actually a candle. If anyone has ever been curious.
That's awesome.
It is not a real skull, unfortunately.
I would never light it.
I don't plan on it. Although, if you do light it, it actually, the inside is red, so it looks like blood.
Ooh.
So I'm tempted.
It is tempting.
But I don't even know where I got it, so I'm like, what if I can't find another one?
I was going to say, if you had another one, you could test, then have another on the side. But
exactly. No, I love my skull.
So, morbid curiosities.
Yeah.
For those who maybe are not familiar with some of you may be bristling at the idea of morbid curiosities. Morbid curiosities are a natural and often subconscious fascination with things that are dark themed or that seem threatening or taboo, subjects like death and violence and the paranormal. All of that falls under the category of morbid curiosity. You're just curious about some dark themes and elements, but again, it's not like the curiosity is going to send you out to do any nefarious acts. It's just a curiosity.
Nor do we condone any of that. And again, it's a curiosity, it's an intrigue, it's a fascination. It is not an action.
No.
and it should not result in any actions being taken. I think that a lot of people that may dabble in the morbid curiosities have questioned at one time or another, why are we fascinated by these things? And there are many theories out there. One of them is that it is driven by a survival-based desire to understand danger, obviously, for survival's sake, and process fear, which is something that we're faced with often. And even though we are not like our ancient ancestors in that we're fearing large predatory animals coming to kill us and eat us, there are all sorts of things and fears in life that we could have. Fear of spiders, that's Desiree's. You could even fear cotton balls. So
yeah, I mean, it's true. There are people who just have think of tryptophobia, like people, tiny holes. Oh,
that's me. That's mine.
To someone who doesn't have it, they're like, it's just tiny holes. But there's just a visceral reaction that your body and brain just have to certain things, and everyone's different.
No, it's true. And similar to watching horror, which some people might view as being morbid or view as being a little bit taboo because of how graphic it can be at times, some people use that as a way to process their own trauma. Similarly, morbid curiosities can allow you to face your fear, which in turn allows you to build psychological resilience. So it can be helpful. I also just want to add, I do think that if taken too far, it can also make you a little numb to certain things that we should be shocked by.
Yeah. We get desensitized very easily as people, as humans. And it's a part of our ancestry of adapting
Yeah,
to life and dangers and everything. But unfortunately, now in modern times, we're currently facing in our country so many things at once. We're just almost in a protective mode. Our brain desensitizes us.
oh,
And while
totally.
in some aspects that's healthy, when it comes to certain morbid curiosities, you don't want to not be phased by
Yeah.
certain things.
Thank you. I remember when I found out how deep into horror my husband got and how he was able to watch certain things, television shows, movies, even read certain books that to me just made my skin crawl. And I didn't really see that visceral reaction from him like I wanted to. So I was like, are you a secret sociopath that I need to be worried right now? No shade to sociopaths. There are plenty normal function sociopaths out there who are not a danger to anybody. But I was really curious if he had just become so desensitized. And he goes, no, it does bother me. It definitely bothers me. But he's not afraid to confront that. Whereas because I use entertainment like books and television and TV for more of a escapism, I tend to not want to always be confronted with very hard things. And then there are certain things that also trigger me, like sexual assault triggers me. And so I will not watch a movie if there is a sexual assault scene in it. It's just not for me. I can pass. There's plenty of media out there that I can consume. But on the flip side, very common interests in the morbid curiosity sector, other than horror, is true crime.
That's, man, 2020, when we were all stuck indoors, the amount of people who suddenly were listening to every true crime podcast.
And let me tell you, sometimes those stories can get pretty graphic. And I don't know if it's something about listening to the description as opposed to visually seeing it, where it feels somewhat safer to me. It doesn't feel as jarring. And so, even though there's certain things that I'll stay away from, as in horror movies, I will consume every true crime podcast out there. It is kind of weird because you think that, oh, well, these are real life stories, whereas opposed to horror being fiction, you would think that the more shocking thing would be listening to all the details of how somebody was killed or eaten, all sorts of things. But for whatever reason, it's comforting to a lot of people.
It's actually funny because I was literally just watching this YouTuber and she plays video games and also reacts to movies on a separate channel. So she's playing these like Fears to Fathom type games that are these short indie games. And this specific one tells stories of real life crimes and situations. Essentially, you're being told like these true crime stories, but in this video game where you're playing the protagonist. And when she finished the game, the ending was talking about like the criminal getting caught, and she was like, wait, is this, because she didn't know going in it was true. So she was like, is this for real? So she Googled it on camera and she was like, oh my God, it is. And it was just interesting because she almost had to process on camera, feeling like, well, now I don't know if I can say the game was fun because it was, but I technically enjoyed it because it was horror and the horror element was fun and fascinating. So it was just funny that seeing how these morbid curiosities, how we approach certain ones where there is that almost debate within yourself going, should I be enjoying this in any capacity? Even though I'm aware that from this element, I'm not condoning it.
No, I think it's the attitude that you have behind it. Like when I watch a true crime documentary or a cult documentary, that could fall under that category as well. There's a couple of things that I think are happening with most people. One, you're trying to figure out, how do I not become a victim to some other psychopath serial killer out there? What did this victim not do wrong? Because obviously nobody deserves violence enacted against them or to be murdered. But what could have been done differently? How could that situation, especially when it's like a lot of, and this is what I tell myself to bring myself comfort, especially when I'm alone and I'm afraid. I was like, a lot of murders happen with people that are closest to you. So as long as you keep your circle of people close to you solid as far as like people's personalities and tendencies, and there's not anybody volatile or toxic or violent near you, the odds of you, you know, getting killed by a random person are less than getting killed by somebody that you know or have close proximity with. Same thing with sexual assault. That aspect I think is kind of fascinating to us, and we're like processing that information as we're watching it. And then there's the aspect of the fascination of understanding how somebody could take another life or multiple lives.
Yeah.
And wanting to understand what drove them to it and what led up to that, even if at the end of the day it's kind of a wash and there's really nothing you could do because the crimes have been committed, the person has been caught, they're either dead or serving their time in prison. And so, but it's just kind of this weird curiosity of like, why nurture versus nature? Why them? Was it the environment, the circumstances, or was it a predisposition to these violent things? And I think more so it's the attitude that we have while we're watching these things. So for me, I'm never like, yay, serial killer. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
And
always
some
horrified.
might, but yeah.
I get angry, honestly.
Same.
I think a lot of women do, because I would like to say, I could be wrong, but that the number one consumer of true crime podcasts are women.
From what I've seen so far, yes.
And I think a lot of women get angry, especially because most of the people that do the killing are men. Easy, isn't it?
I think statistically, I mean, while both are in great numbers, the greater number of victims are women.
I agree with that. And so I think for women, it's sort of like a coping mechanism to the violence that is basically we're faced with every day when we step outside of our doors. Some of us are even faced with it inside of the home, depending on who we're in relationships with, who our relatives are, who our friends are.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this one true crime story where this girl was murdered by her ex-boyfriend's current girlfriend. And it's just, again, it's just one of those things where you're just like, the people around you, the relationships that you have really matter, but also there are just some things that are out of your control. And we're very aware of that. And for whatever reason, similar to when victims of sexual assault read dark fantasy.
Yeah, I
think the crime documentaries feels like we are taking a little bit of that control back and of not fearing what could potentially happen to us when we step outside our door.
Exactly. For example, along with obviously true crimes, the fascination of like documentaries about serial killers, for example, I definitely think that what calls to us is the study of human nature, like you were saying.
Totally.
It's very much sometimes a matter of also wanting to kind of understand why, like you said, what drove someone to do this, what was the pattern, things that maybe subconsciously you're also marking down, going, do I look out for these things in my life? You know, because again, especially as women, we have this innate intuition that we need to be on guard. We take these things probably a little more differently than men do.
Oh, for sure.
Because we're not just watching for watching's sake. We are taking notes in the background.
Totally.
And, like I said, studying human nature because of possible threats and just wanting to understand. There's so many aspects. And it's interesting because when I was searching about this, a common question, both on Reddit and like Google searches and things, seemed to be, is having morbid curiosity a mental illness? Like, is it wrong? And the clear answer was no. It is not a mental illness of any sort or connected to one if you have morbid curiosities. It is healthy that we are paying attention to life, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, it is a part of life.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, ideally, we wouldn't want the dark aspect that harms other humans and people and animals. We wouldn't want that to be a part of life, but it is. So we can't put our head in the sand either.
And not all morbid curiosities are something that leads to violence or leads to something that is incredibly taboo. I mean, haunted places, macabre things. Some people are fascinated by the catacombs in Paris because they're filled with skulls. And yes, you're aware that these are dead bodies and that these were real people at one point. And there's actually like this sign that they put up to like not steal the skulls
Oh
because people
God.
have tried to take them home.
It's like, that's an actual human. It was an actual human
Yeah.
being. It's not a decorative piece.
And see, I think that is where the line of morbid
Mm,
curiosity should be, is like, we should still be respectful
yes.
and we should not be calloused, because I
Mm,
think it takes a certain level of callousness and
mm,
desensitization, as you said, to just take a human skull, knowing that belonged to a human being who had their own life, their own story, and take it from their resting place. Like, I am
like a
very
souvenir.
Exactly. I'm very against what we have done with Egyptian mummies. I think it's incredibly
Mm,
disrespectful to remove people from their resting places, especially when you consider their religious beliefs and why they built these tombs in the first place and put all
mhm,
their possessions into it and what they feel like is going to happen in the afterlife. To put them on display in museums, this is why I won't go to museums that
mm,
I have an issue with museums in general, because a lot of the artwork, a lot of the artifacts are taken from other countries, and
mm.
not in a bargaining like, hey, I will give you this, and no, they stole them.
Yeah.
And to display a mummy just dehumanizes the fact that that was a person, the fact that this is
You
this is their body.
desecrated their resting place.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
if we have laws and rules about doing that to graves in cemeteries in our country, why do we think that it's okay to go to somebody else's country and go to the pyramids and dig up these ancient mummies and then take them from their resting places and put them on display?
Like, imagine your loved one in the grave
Exactly.
at the cemetery you visit, just without your permission, being dug up and put on display somewhere for people to gawk at. You would not feel, because I feel like people look at that as like, it was so long ago. It's the same thing.
It's not the point. Right, exactly. If you wouldn't want your great grandparent dug up and put on display for everyone to come and see, why would you think it's okay to do that to anybody else? But all that to say is that, visiting haunted places, it's
Hmm.
more of a thrill seeking thing, I
Yeah.
think, and also a desire to connect to something otherworldly. There's also like a
Mm.
spiritual thing there too, where
Yeah.
some people, not all
Yeah.
people, but some
Hmm.
people want to connect to something that's other than. And
Hmm.
then some people do it for the thrill because they like being afraid. That's why
Yeah, the
people,
adrenaline spike that you
yeah,
get. I mean, think about growing up. How many haunted houses did we go to as children?
yeah.
Look at the like multi-million, maybe even more industry that is like Halloween Horror Nights at Disney every year. Like, the fascination with like haunted places and
Yeah.
haunted experiences fascinates us, and very much it's this adrenaline. It makes you feel alive.
It does. And let me tell you, so the last time I was in a haunted house was not that long ago. It's when I lived in Seattle. We went to this island. I think it's called Whidbey Island. It's where they filmed Practical Magic.
Oh, yeah, that's
And we went there for the Halloween season because we wanted to see, some of the sets. The town is
right.
specifically is where they filmed. There is the town. And they had a haunted house in an old military fort. And the costumes were impressive, let me tell you. There was a werewolf that looked like it was 10 feet. I kid you not. I don't know
Oh,
how. But the point is, yes, I was scared. I wasn't sure I really wanted to do it, but I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. And I ended up, every time I ended up getting like abruptly startled, I screamed and then I just started to laugh.
yeah.
And I have the same reaction on roller coasters. I'm fucking terrified. The entire like anticipation of like either going up something
Mm.
or waiting until it shoots you out or whatever. And then while the ride is going, I'm like, I don't know what it is that
Those were great.
it just becomes fun at one
Yeah.
point. You don't take it so seriously. Like conceptually, you're not in
Mm.
danger in those
Yes.
moments.
And that's what I think helps like the experience be different, where there's
Yeah.
the enjoyment of the thrill, essentially. So, another morbid curiosity that maybe people don't realize is a morbid curiosity is exploring like historical disasters. And
Mm.
I remember, for me personally, growing up fascinated with Titanic.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think people forget thousands of people died. Like, Like we focus so much on like the shipwreck and exploring the shipwreck, but we forget to connect that entire experience with a bunch of deaths, and
Yeah.
not painful ones that suffered. But it is a morbid curiosity because it's also historically something that happened. Especially, I think the morbid curiosity also comes from it being another time and era from our own. And
Yeah.
so there are a lot of things to explore with that.
I think too there's a disconnection there because
Yeah.
it's a point in history in which we're not familiar with. We didn't live that.
Mm,
And same thing with like natural disasters. When something happens at another location, it doesn't touch us in the same way. We're not directly impacted. And so there's a little bit of like a mental separation there that I think allows
mm,
us to delve in deeper without having so much emotion attached to it.
mm-hmm.
I have respect, but I don't necessarily always get emotional. I think it
Yeah.
depends on the situation. I think for me, thinking about historical disasters or historical events that
Mm,
would be considered morbid curiosities if you were to become kind of fascinated with
mm,
it, the Holocaust being one of them always makes
mm-hmm.
me incredibly emotional. But I think
Yeah.
part of us looking at those things is learning from them because
Yeah.
we don't want to repeat that. But more importantly, and I can say this because there's a lot of conversation
Mm,
around comparing Nazi Germany to what's happening in here in the United States, and I think it's really helpful to be aware of those things so that you can see the sort of historical markers
mm-hmm.
maybe taking place or recognizing the playbook, because a lot of the
Mm,
times when history repeats itself, it's same shit different day. You know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm.
Like a lot of these leaders that are doing similar things to historical leaders in the past, they're taking it from the same playbook.
Yep.
It's not any different. It might be slightly modernized to
Mm.
the world that we live in today, but it's the same tactics over
It's
and
the
over
same
again.
psychology that worked
There you go.
to create a certain outcome. And that is what then gets repeated over and over and over. But like you said,
Yeah.
tweaked for the times.
And my personal morbid curiosity with that, I'll just say, same thing with serial killers, same thing with cult leaders. I just don't understand people like that.
Mm,
People who are driven to such hatred, to such violence. Not that I have no capability of hating, I think I
mm,
definitely do. And I think that this past couple of years has tested that. But to take it to the level of what other people have done to physically harm someone, to torment
mm.
them, to look at somebody as being less than human, that I will never, no matter
Yeah.
how many documentaries I watch, no matter how many historical events I study, I will never understand that. And I think that the need and the desire to understand is what
Mm-hmm.
drives some of those things.
Agreed. So interesting enough, I would say also like with natural disasters along with historical disasters is Chernobyl. And the thing that I remember specifically what it connects to for me as a memory. When I was younger, my mom and I would watch, I forgot what channel it was, but there was a certain channel that played this show, and there was this host, and he pretty much every week taught you how to survive a certain either natural disaster, disastrous event,
Interesting.
something. It was, but we were fascinated and we like locked in every week. And one of them was like, how would you survive a nuclear blast? And so
Mm,
the thing is, they would do a dramatization.
yeah.
So you would physically like see him and maybe someone else in a building trying to figure out, teaching you like what tools maybe to help you survive the radiation, all these things.
Yeah.
And then again, if there was a like F5 tornado, if there was a bomb,
Mm,
there was all these things, if there was a hostage situation, like there was so many interesting scenarios. And again, it goes back to what we said in the beginning. The fascination is also studying a way to like survive
yeah.
these potential. How many times, and I don't know if it's a woman thing, but how many times do we like sometimes walk around and on the outside we're just living our lives in
But
our
we're like
head?
assessing,
Yes, and going,
how would
if
I do
this
this?
were to happen, what are the different
Oh,
ways
Lordy.
I'd go about surviving this, getting away from this? That's
Yeah.
constantly for people maybe who don't, especially if men, if this isn't like you,
Yeah.
this is always going on in our heads.
Honestly, and thankfully not on a like constant loop, but
Yeah.
especially in situations like if I'm walking somewhere by myself at night, if
Yeah.
I'm in an unfamiliar location, like if I see somebody that I think is sketchy, I don't really like judging people by first impressions, but as a woman, I have to protect myself. And most of
At
the
least be
time, I'm
alert.
judging men
Yeah.
and looking at them and going, should I
Mm,
cross the street and walk on
mm,
this side? And I think it's important to ask yourself those questions because there is that survival instinct. You want
yeah.
to survive. You don't want that to be how your life ends, or you don't want to be harmed. And so it's just like a natural inclination. And I think
Yep.
when you are in a demographic like we are as women that are constantly threatened with harm, then it's only natural and understandable that we would arm ourselves with as much knowledge as we can, because not all of us are physically capable of fighting back, but we can use our wits, we can use our intelligence and our
Mm-hmm.
knowledge to maybe get out of certain situations. And I mean, horror movies taught us that. The
Yep.
final girl, they're always the smart and resourceful ones. And so obviously we want to model ourselves as a intelligent, resourceful, capable person who could get themselves out of a
Mm-hmm.
situation like that. But I did want to just point out one more little thing that I think is going to be actually very unexpected for people
Mm.
when it comes to morbid curiosities. This may not be a reason why we gravitate towards them, but I do think it is like a symptom of having morbid curiosities, which is empathy.
Ooh, explain.
So, when I became fascinated with human psychology and wanting to understand people that are very unlike myself, I would watch documentaries about sociopaths. I would watch documentaries about pedophiles, about all cannibals, all sorts of people. And obviously, there is a very clear line about what is right and what is wrong, what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. But I'll never forget watching this one documentary on pedophiles. And I know this is a very controversial topic, especially right now. And I want to preface by saying that I think the sexual abuse of children is absolutely abhorrent. And there is absolutely no condoning ever touching a child in any way, shape, or form. But
And
it
a
was very,
child is up to 17, 18 years old, by the way.
yeah. Um, eh, I would err on the side of 18, 19. But
Agreed, but I knew people probably wouldn't
yeah, I
agree
would
with
argue
that.
with that. But one of the people that they interviewed was somebody who had, physical romantic attraction towards
Hmm.
children, but never acted upon it
Hmm.
and knows that it's wrong. And in my head, I was like, this is something that they feel like they cannot control.
Mm-hmm.
They said that they've tried to date women their own age. They don't find them attractive. They don't find them romantically interesting. And it made me stop for a second and go, what if we didn't not normalize being attracted to children, but what if it wasn't something that was so shameful, especially for someone who's never acted upon it before, that they could come forth and get the psychological help that they need, that
Hmm.
they wouldn't be so afraid of violence being done against them, they wouldn't be so afraid of their, families ostracizing them, the world ostracizing them, and that they could get the help that they need so that they don't act upon these things,
Hmm.
so that they can live a relatively normal life without ever putting a child in danger. I do wonder about that, because here is somebody who is aware that his attraction is wrong and he
Hmm.
can never act upon it. And he takes certain precautions to make sure that he never does.
Hmm.
And I have respect for that. I am attracted to men.
Mm-hmm.
I have opened myself up to the possibility of being attracted to women, but I have
Mm-hmm.
yet to find a woman that I am physically, sexually, romantically attracted to.
Mm-hmm.
If I cannot change
Hmm.
what I am attracted to, how can I expect that this person who, for whatever reason, has this attraction that can just at the snap of his fingers change it about himself?
Hmm.
It's a very complex issue, but
Yeah.
it made me grow empathy when I
Hmm.
when I watched a documentary about a psychologist who was also a diagnosed sociopath, it changed how I viewed people with sociopathy and made me realize that I had one specific view of what they were and
Mm-hmm.
who they were, and that not everybody fits into that box.
Mm.
And again, because we associate sociopathy with violence,
Mm-hmm.
if we come across somebody that is a diagnosed sociopath, we're like side-eyeing them like,
Mm.
should I be worried? And majority of, from what I've heard, majority of people with sociopathy are not necessarily prone to violence.
Mm.
And a lot of them live under the radar because they don't feel comfortable talking about it in public because they know the stigma that is against them.
Mm.
So these are things that you wouldn't think,
Mm-hmm.
like cannibalism too. I remember this one story, and this is the last story that I'll tell, where this guy, he put out an ad seeking somebody that he could eat. And it was completely voluntary, and somebody actually answered that ad because he didn't want to kill anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But he had this desire to eat human flesh. I don't understand where those desires come from. I am not a therapist. I am not a psychologist. But I do understand that there are certain things that we can't quite explain. There are certain desires and impulses that we have. And I don't know if they would ever necessarily go away, but I do know that there is a way to control them, and there is a way to adapt, even if it means, like, you know, unfortunately, like that guy that was attracted to children, living alone for the rest of your life because you'll never be able to experience having a partner because of who you're attracted to and because you know that it's wrong. And I think that people fear humanizing, but these are humans.
Yeah.
You know, and at the end of the day, we're all just, you know, hopefully trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I think that there is empathy that comes when you hear somebody's story and you go, oh my gosh, like I never
thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Oh boy. But again, morbid curiosity of wanting to understand and empathize with people who struggle with things that they feel are not in their control, that are usually taboo and society shuns. So it's very interesting. There are countless morbid curiosities that you may not even realize are morbid curiosities. A lot of like medical anomalies and medical shows that are graphic and all these. There are so many different variants, but at the end of the day, it is scientifically, psychologically reviewed that having morbid curiosities is perfectly healthy, and it's the fascination that drives us to explore ambiguous situations, which, you know, might teach us something, might teach us about our own survival, might teach us about our own tendencies, might give us empathy towards others and their impulses and tendencies that are driven from something greater than that hasn't been explored or understood. But there's nothing wrong with it. So I hope you guys lean into your morbid curiosities and please share with us some of yours because I'm curious.
Wait, before we stop, what are my morbid curiosities, Desiree? We said at the beginning that I just wanted to test it and see.
I feel like we discussed them all though. Just the horror, definitely the horror aspect. Definitely, like, I know you've thought about cannibalism. The
not
cult.
me. I don't want to eat anybody.
Well, not personally. Like you, about those who exercise cannibalism.
Yes.
You've studied just like, you know, the minds of more taboo and darker people and who've done certain actions. I know cults fascinate you, probably because we came from one, so we want to understand.
Here's another one. I really love oddities. I love, like, I have a ton of, like, little animal hearts and animal bones and different things like that.
That's right.
I do. Yeah.
I have noticed that recently in recent years.
There are a lot of oddities that I like too. I actually, other than true crime, what are your morbid curiosities?
I mean, growing up, I feel like I experienced more of them than I do now. And probably because I had consistent dreams with tornadoes. And so I was equally petrified by like the thought of experiencing one, but I was also fascinated and watching every documentary, every movie.
All I could think
Why-
about is Kansas City when we were trying to drive to go get barbecue and
There
the
was
tornado sirens went off and we weren't sure if they were being tested or if there was a real tornado about to happen.
and we couldn't see any signs of anything. And I'm driving and I'm panicking because there's no safe place to go and take
Yeah.
shelter if something pops off
And
the
we had no
brush.
experience with tornadoes. We had only known hurricanes, which give you plenty of notice in advance. And so we didn't even know what to look for. We thought we were Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton. We were like, is the sky green?
Well, imagine, because I grew up fascinated with them.
Yeah.
So I studied them. I
Mhm.
studied the sky, the different markers to prepare you. So my head was very much Helen Hunt. And I was like, what are the signs? Are this, are that? Is the wind? Is the rain sideways? Is it? I was just like,
I mean, I get it. Like you said earlier with the cannibalism thing, I think I'm more fascinated with cannibalism in like ancient cultures because there was a belief in certain cultures that if you ate someone, you could gain whatever power. And I think on a psychological level, cannibalism can be like you desiring an attribute of somebody else and it manifesting in a way of wanting to eat them. And it's like a subconscious thing, but really it's that you want to be like them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't had a lot. I think in recent years, I can't think of a lot. I had way more younger. Again, I
some.
was fascinated with Titanic and Holocaust and haunted houses. But yeah, as I am now in recent years, I can't think of any. I'm gonna have
Well,
to
I'll be taking
explore some.
Desiree to a haunted house soon then.
I'm gonna scream my ass off. I just need to grip someone's shirt.
Don't worry, you can hang on to me for sure.
Okay. Oh, guys, thanks for hanging out with us this week. That was a fun topic.
Yes, it was.
And we definitely want to hear more from you. And
Yeah,
again,
what are your morbid curiosities?
seriously, there may be, I know there are tons we did not go over. You might actually give us some insight about ones we didn't even realize we had.
Absolutely. Well, friends, if you could do us a favor, like, subscribe, share. You can comment on Instagram, you can comment on YouTube, and you can comment on any of the podcasting platforms. And while you're there, if you could do us a favor and please leave a review. You can leave a review on this episode, any other episode, or the podcast as a whole. It would do us a really huge favor, especially with the algorithm, to get our content out there for others to see. And until next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.